The galaxy was full of stories about the humans who once walked among the stars. Many alien races remembered them as explorers, warriors, and dreamers. They were a people who never stayed still. They built colonies on harsh planets. They crossed the darkest regions of space, and they made friends and enemies with equal fire. And then, without any warning, they were gone. No war was recorded. No great disaster was found. One day their ships filled the stars, and the next day silence covered their worlds. Whole colonies stood empty. Machines that once hummed with life now sat cold and abandoned. For centuries, the Galactic Council debated the mystery of their disappearance. Some thought a plague had ended them. Others whispered that humans had destroyed themselves in secret wars. There were even rumors that some stronger alien race had wiped them out. But no proof was ever found. Dr. Alan Brooks had always been fascinated by the puzzle. He was not a soldier or a politician. He was a historian, a seeker of old truths. His heart often pulled him toward the forgotten archives that lay scattered on Earth, the planet that humans once called home. He worked with Maria Lopez, a younger researcher with quick eyes and a curious mind. Together they studied broken transmissions, lost journals, and data crystals so old that most machines could no longer read them. Alan would often stand in the dusty halls of the abandoned library dome in what was once New York and imagine the voices of the people who had filled it. Maria would follow behind him, brushing dirt off old data tablets and laughing softly at his habit of talking to himself. They were different in many ways, but their hunger for the truth bound them together. One evening, as they looked over a half-burned fragment of a journal, Maria leaned closer to the flickering light. The words were faint, but still there. "We are leaving soon. The choice has been made. The great departure begins." Alan felt his heart skip a beat. He had seen many theories, but this was the first time he had seen a human's own words hinting at something more than tragedy. Maria's eyes shone with excitement. "Do you see it?" she whispered. "They were not destroyed. They left." Alan nodded slowly. "It seems so, but why? And where did they go?" This fragment became their first true clue. From that day, their work no longer felt like chasing shadows. It felt like following footprints left on a hidden path. They began to travel. Their search took them first to New Horizon, one of the first colonies outside Earth. The planet was beautiful but quiet now, home to a few alien settlers who lived among the old human structures. The air still carried traces of the work humans had done long ago. Alan and Maria walked through wide streets where grass now grew through cracks in the stone. The houses stood untouched, almost as if waiting for their people to return. In one home, they found children's drawings still pinned to the wall. A family had lived there once, but they had left in peace. There were no signs of struggle, no rush of panic. Everything looked as though the people had simply walked out the door together. In another part of the colony, they found whole storage areas that were completely empty. Machines, tools, and starship parts were missing. It was as if the humans had taken everything they needed with them. Maria turned slowly in one of the storage rooms, her voice soft with awe. "Alan, this does not look like the end of a people. This looks like a planned journey." Alan felt a strange chill, the kind that came when the truth was close enough to touch. He thought of the journal fragment, and now this. It all fit together too neatly. "Yes," he said. "They did not vanish by accident. They chose to leave." But the question of where still lingered. Their journey continued to another world, an older colony that was once called Hope's Reach. The ruins here were older, worn down by storms and time. Yet in a sealed chamber beneath the colony's main hall, they found something precious, a set of journals carefully stored in a metal case. Maria's hands trembled as she opened them. The words were clear, even after centuries. The journals spoke of a gathering of leaders, a decision to begin something called the Grand Departure. It described ships being prepared, families packing belongings, and communities ready to travel together. It was not despair that filled the pages, but determination and even excitement. The writer spoke of seeking freedom, of leaving behind interference, of starting new lives far away. But none of the journals ever said where they were going. Maria closed the last journal with a sigh. They wanted this. They were not afraid, they were proud. Alan sat down on a broken stone bench and rubbed his forehead. But they did not tell us their destination. It is as if they wanted no one to follow. Still, he could not ignore the truth shining through every word. Humanity had not been destroyed. They had disappeared by choice. The Council had always believed they were lost victims of fate. But Alan now knew that was a mistake. The humans had taken their destiny into their own hands. Back in their small ship, Alan stared out at the stars. Maria sat beside him, holding one of the journals close. For the first time, the mystery of the vanished humans felt less like a wound and more like a trail leading forward. Somewhere out there, beyond the known routes of the Council, lay the answer. He felt both fear and hope. If humans had chosen to vanish, then maybe they were still out there, waiting, hidden in the dark between the stars. The galaxy had forgotten them, but Alan and Maria would not. Their search had only just begun. Alan and Maria did not sleep much after leaving Hope's reach. The words in the journals filled their minds. The humans had spoken of leaving with pride, as if they had found something greater than the galaxy could offer them. Alan kept turning the pages over in his thoughts, wondering why they had written so much about the journey but so little about the destination. Maria, with her restless energy, kept searching the journals for hidden codes, certain that something had been left behind for those who would come after. Their ship was small and not made for long voyages, but both of them knew they could not stop. Each discovery only made the mystery grow deeper. The Galactic Council had ignored the ruins for centuries, treating them as nothing more than relics of a dead race. Alan and Maria saw them differently. Every world told a piece of the story. Every ruin whispered that the humans had not been destroyed but had walked away. Their next destination was a colony known in old records as Bright Shore. Few dared to travel there now, because the planet was close to unstable regions of space where storms of radiation sometimes cut across the skies. The journey was long, and their ship shook with the force of passing waves of energy. Maria held on to the controls while Alan tried to keep their systems from overloading. At last, they descended onto the quiet world below. Bright Shore was a planet of wide seas and shining sand. Human structures still stood near the coast, worn but not destroyed. Alan and Maria walked along empty halls and wide plazas, listening to the ocean crash against the cliffs. There were no signs of battle, no graves, and no broken machines left behind. Instead, they found more storage areas emptied with care. Tools, engines, and even children's learning tablets were missing. It was as if the people had packed every useful thing and carried it with them. In one chamber, they discovered something unusual. The walls were covered with star maps carved directly into the stone. Some were maps of known regions, but others reached into areas Alan had never seen recorded. Great arcs of stars were marked with lines as if to suggest routes, yet when he checked them against his databases, they led into areas filled with storms and unstable wormholes. Maria traced her hand along one of the carved routes and whispered, "This is not a mistake. They planned to travel through these places. They wanted to go where no one else dared." Alan frowned, uneasy at the thought. These paths are dangerous. Many ships have been lost in storms like these. Why would they risk so much? Maria looked at him with quiet certainty. Because they were human. Because risk never stopped them. Alan could not argue. He knew she was right. Humans had always stepped into the unknown, even when others warned them away. Perhaps the danger was the very reason they had chosen that path. They copied the maps and left Bright Shore behind. Back on the ship, Maria spent hours comparing the routes to modern star charts. Slowly, she noticed patterns. The maps pointed toward the far edge of the galaxy, to a place where few dared to travel. It was a region of storms, shifting gravity, and unstable wormholes. To most species, it was a place of death. But to humans, it might have been the perfect hiding place. As their small ship traveled onward, Alan often thought about the Council. He imagined the long meetings where alien voices argued about the humans' fate. Some would have been relieved that humans were gone, fearing their boldness and their temper. Others might have missed their spirit, but none of them had ever guessed the truth. Alan and Maria now carried something the Council had never seen, living proof that the humans had chosen their own path. Their next stop was a forgotten outpost on the barren world of Ashen Vale. The planet's surface was covered in dust storms, and their ship barely made a safe landing. They covered their faces and moved through the remains of the settlement, where the air still carried a bitter taste. Here they found not journals or maps, but a strange device buried beneath the main hall. It pulsed with faint energy, still alive after all these centuries. Maria knelt beside it, brushing away layers of dust. This is not like the other technology we've seen. This feels like something new, something they built at the very end. Alan examined the markings on the side. They were human symbols, but arranged in ways he had never seen. It seemed to be some kind of beacon, though it no longer sent a clear signal. When Maria connected her scanner, fragments of sound filled the air. Voices, human voices, speaking in broken pieces. Journey continues. We are not lost. The path is ours. Remember. Maria gasped and pressed her hands to her mouth. Alan closed his eyes, listening to the echoes of people who had lived long ago. They were not crying out for help. They were declaring their strength. They had wanted anyone who found this to know that they had chosen their fate. That night, as the storms howled outside their ship, Alan and Maria sat together in silence. The beacon's voice still rang in their ears. It was no longer just a mystery. It was a promise. The humans had gone somewhere beyond the reach of ordinary travelers, and they had left signs for those who would care enough to follow. Maria spoke first, her voice quiet but firm. Alan, we cannot stop now. This is bigger than history. This is their legacy. They wanted someone to know. Alan looked at her and nodded. Yes, we will follow the path, no matter where it leads. The next days were filled with planning. The routes from Bright Shore, the beacon from Ashen Vale, the journals from Hope's Reach. All of them pointed toward one truth. Humanity had not been destroyed. They had built a road into the storms beyond the galaxy. Alan and Maria knew that following them would mean great danger. Their ship was not built for such journeys, and the chances of survival were slim. But neither of them could turn away. As their vessel left Ashen Vale and began the long journey toward the edge of known space, Alan stood by the viewing window. Stars stretched before him like endless candles in the dark. Somewhere beyond those stars the humans had gone. Somewhere beyond the answer waited. Maria joined him, her face calm but full of determination. They did not speak. They did not need to. The silence between them was filled with the voices of the past, guiding them forward. The mystery of humanity's disappearance was no longer a cold puzzle in forgotten records. It was alive. It was real. And Alan and Maria were no longer just historians. They were travelers on the very path the humans had once walked. The truth was waiting, and they were ready to find it. Alan and Maria traveled through the edge of the galaxy with care. The stars looked different here. They shone with colors that the inner regions did not have. Nebulae glowed in strange patterns, and wormholes twisted like silver ribbons. This part of space was dangerous. Many ships had disappeared here, and few dared to travel. But Alan and Maria felt no fear. The thought of finding the humans pushed them forward. Days turned into weeks. Their small ship was often shaken by gravity waves and energy storms. Every night Alan checked the star maps they had copied from Bright Shore. Every day Maria scanned the nearby systems, looking for signs of old human activity. They found fragments of abandoned stations and broken satellites. All were empty, left long ago, but each fragment told a story. Each hinted that humans had passed this way. One day, as they entered a dark region where the stars were thin, the ship's alarms started to ring. Alan rushed to the controls. Gravity storm ahead. Brace yourself, Maria. Maria tightened her grip and followed his instructions. The ship trembled and shook, but they managed to pass through. When the storm cleared, they were greeted by a sight that made them both gasp. A massive structure floated in space, a station unlike any they had seen. Its design was clearly human, though far older than any records showed. The station seemed abandoned, but its scale was immense. Alan stared at it in awe. This is incredible, he whispered. Humans built this? Out here? Maria nodded, equally amazed. They were always bold, but they planned something very big. They docked carefully and entered the station. The halls were dark and the air was still. Strange lights flickered as their ship powered the old systems. The walls were lined with panels that showed maps of stars. Not just the nearby systems, but places far beyond the known galaxy. Alan studied them closely. Each map was more detailed than any he had seen before. It showed routes through storms, safe paths, and hidden corridors. In the control room, they found more journals. These were personal logs from humans who had lived on the station long ago. The entries were full of hope and courage. One log read, "We are moving beyond what is known. We leave not because we must, but because we choose. The galaxy may forget us, but we will remember ourselves." Maria touched the words with reverence. They wanted freedom. They wanted to live on their own terms. Alan nodded, thinking of all they had seen so far. Every step we take proves it. Humanity has never been weak. They face dangers no one else would. and they left everything behind to find their own path. They explored deeper into the station and found evidence of human life, small gardens, exercise areas, and classrooms. It was like a self-contained world, made for people to live far from the galaxy's center. But still no one remained. It was a ghost station, carrying the memory of those who had passed through. One of the final chambers held a device similar to the beacon they had found on Ashen Vale. When activated, it projected a holographic star map. A line traced a path through multiple wormholes and star systems, leading to a place marked as the Sanctuary. Alan and Maria exchanged glances. This had to be the destination, the place humanity had chosen. They took careful notes and copied every detail. Maria adjusted the ship's course. The path would be difficult. It passed through unstable wormholes that would test both ship and crew. Alan knew that if they failed, they might never find the humans. But the thought of turning back never crossed his mind. They had come too far. The journey was long and dangerous. Wormholes bent space in ways that made navigation tricky. The ship's sensors often went offline, and the engines had to work at full power to survive. They traveled through narrow passages, past glowing clouds of gas, and across regions where gravity waves twisted their path. Every time they thought they might be lost, Alan and Maria found clues left by the humans. Old satellites, faint energy signatures, and tiny marks on asteroids showing that humans had passed before. During one quiet moment, Maria spoke softly. "Alan, do you think they knew we would come?" Alan smiled faintly. "I don't know. Maybe they did. Maybe they left signs just for someone brave enough to follow. Or maybe they just trusted that someone would want to know their story." They passed through another wormhole, and for the first time, they began to sense a pattern. The path seemed to guide them not only through danger but towards safety. The humans had chosen their routes carefully. They had mapped every step, anticipating the challenges that would come. Alan felt a deep respect. Humanity had always been clever, resourceful, and bold. Finally, after weeks of travel, they approached a region that was calmer. Stars glowed warmly and energy readings suggested a stable system. As they entered, Alan and Maria saw them, the signs of a human civilization. Ships moved between planets. People lived on worlds full of greenery and cities sparkled with lights. It was unlike anything the galaxy had expected. Humanity had not vanished. They had grown, hidden in a cluster of stars beyond ordinary reach. Maria's eyes widened. They survived. They thrived. Alan nodded, unable to speak. The humans had not only disappeared, they had found a way to build a world for themselves, far from the watchful eyes of the Council. Every step, every risk, every empty colony and journal had led to this moment. Humanity had created its own sanctuary, and now Alan and Maria were standing at the edge of the greatest discovery of their lives. For the first time, they felt the weight of what they had uncovered. The disappearance of humanity was not a tragedy. It was a story of courage, intelligence, and the will to survive on their own terms. They were not alone in history. They had been part of something larger. The humans had chosen freedom, and they had achieved it against all odds. Alan and Maria approached the human cluster with cautious excitement. From the outside, the world shimmered with life. Cities sprawled across continents and green fields stretched between them. Ships moved in organized paths, carrying people and goods from world to world. The humans had built something magnificent, and yet it all felt calm, peaceful, and alive. As their small ship moved closer, sensors detected movement around a planet they identified as the capital. Ships of many sizes flew near it, and enormous structures towered above the surface. Alan and Maria felt a mix of awe and fear. They were strangers in this place, visitors from the galaxy's edge, and yet they knew that the people here were the humans who had disappeared centuries ago. They were soon hailed by a human ship. The voice over the comm was clear, confident, and kind. "This is the settlement of Terra Nova. Identify yourselves." Alan took a deep breath. "I am Dr. Alan Brooks, historian. This is my assistant, Maria Lopez. We come in peace. We have been following your history. We have come to understand." There was a pause, then the voice responded. "We have been expecting you. Land on the southern platform. We will meet you there." Alan and Maria exchanged shocked glances. Somehow, the humans had anticipated their arrival. They followed the instructions carefully, docking on a platform filled with light and warmth. People approached them, not with weapons or suspicion, but with smiles and calm gazes. A woman stepped forward, tall and strong, her uniform simple but elegant. "I am Commander Anna Gray," she said. "We know who you are. You've come to learn our story." Alan bowed slightly. "Yes, Commander. We have followed the records, journals, and maps left behind. We have traced your path across the galaxy. We seek to understand why humanity vanished." Anna nodded. "Then you shall see it for yourselves. Come with me." She led them through the platform and into a vast hall filled with light. Other humans moved about, working, talking, and laughing. It was a world that had grown and thrived beyond anything Alan or Maria had imagined. The air was fresh, the colors vivid, and the technology advanced yet unobtrusive. Humans had not only survived, they had created beauty, knowledge, and peace. Alan's mind raced. "How did you manage this? How did you hide from the rest of the galaxy?" Anna smiled. "We used what we learned from the journey. We built our own paths, avoiding interference, and focused on growth. We chose independence because the galaxy often misunderstands boldness. Humans do not follow rules that limit them unnecessarily. We did not vanish. We chose freedom." Maria looked around in awe. "This is incredible. You are alive. You have grown. And all this in secret?" "Yes," Anna replied. "We needed time to mature, time to understand ourselves." The Council saw our disappearance as tragedy, but it was not. It was opportunity. We have built a civilization that can live in harmony and yet be prepared for challenges. Every risk we took on our journey led us here. Alan and Maria were shown the cities, the schools, the research centers, and the training grounds. Humans had maintained traditions, but also advanced in technology far beyond what the outer galaxy had seen. Ships capable of extraordinary travel, energy systems that could power entire worlds, and communities designed for both safety and freedom. Everything reflected careful planning and courage. As they walked through one of the grand gardens, Alan asked, "What will happen when the Council discovers this? Will you return?" Anna looked thoughtful. "We do not seek conflict. We will return when the galaxy is ready to accept humanity as we are. Until then, we watch, learn, and grow. Our disappearance was not punishment. It was preparation. Our return will be a choice, not an accident." Maria smiled, her eyes glinting. "You truly are humans. You think beyond fear and expectation. You act with purpose." Alan nodded. "I have studied humanity for years. I have read about courage, independence, and curiosity, but seeing it here in full measure is beyond anything I imagined." Over the next days, Alan and Maria learned about the systems of governance, the schools of thought, and the way humans cooperated without losing individuality. They saw training fields where young humans learned to explore, think critically, and defend themselves. They watched children play games that combined physical skill, strategy, and science. It was a society built not just for survival, but for excellence. At night, they were invited to a council meeting. Humans of all ages gathered in a large hall. Anna explained that this was a place where decisions were made collectively, respecting both tradition and innovation. Alan and Maria listened as humans debated trade routes, educational priorities, and planetary management. It was orderly yet dynamic, respectful yet strong. After the meeting, Anna took them to a quiet observation deck. Stars stretched endlessly before them, shining brightly over the cluster of worlds. Alan felt a deep sense of humility and awe. "You have achieved what many thought impossible," he said quietly. Anna looked out at the stars. "We achieved what we had to. Independence was not given to us. We claimed it. We survived storms, challenges, and doubt, and now we are ready." Maria reached out and touched Alan's arm. "We came seeking answers. We found a civilization beyond imagination. This will change everything in the galaxy when it is known." Alan nodded, feeling a mix of pride and anticipation. They had followed the human trail and found not emptiness but life in its fullest form. The humans had not disappeared. They had chosen, planned, and succeeded. And soon, the rest of the galaxy would learn the truth. For the first time, Alan and Maria realized the full scale of what humanity had done. They had not only escaped the Council's limits, they had grown, built, and prepared. The disappearance had been a strategy, a bold move that no one could have predicted. And now, the truth was alive, waiting to be shared with the stars. Alan and Maria spent their first days learning more about the human cluster. Every discovery amazed them. The humans had created societies that balanced freedom and order, growth and safety. It was a world of both thought and action. Every person, young or old, seemed to have purpose and knowledge. Alan often thought of the journals and fragments they had followed. Now he realized that every clue had led them here, to a civilization that had mastered what the galaxy thought impossible. One morning, Commander Anna Gray invited them to a special meeting. Alan and Maria followed her into a large hall filled with leaders, scholars, and explorers. The humans called this gathering the Council of the Cluster. Anna spoke to the group, introducing the visitors from the outside galaxy. She explained that Alan and Maria had followed the long path humanity had left behind and had come to see the truth of their people. A tall man who introduced himself as Governor Liam Hunt smiled at them. "We have long awaited the day when someone from the outer worlds could understand our story. Your journey proves that humanity's path is not forgotten. You carry the evidence of what we have done." Alan felt a thrill of honor. "We have followed every map, every journal, every beacon you left. We now understand that humans did not vanish. You chose a path of independence, growth, and survival. We are here to share your story with the galaxy." Maria added, "Every world we visited, every clue we found led to this moment. Humanity's courage and vision are clear. You are beyond what the Council ever imagined." The human leaders nodded. "It is time the galaxy knows," Anna said. "But it must be done carefully. We are strong, but the rest of the galaxy does not understand our choices. They may fear us if we reveal too quickly." Alan and Maria agreed. They spent weeks with the humans, learning how they had built their homes, trained their people, and grown their technology. They visited education centers, laboratories, and defense facilities. They saw children learning not only mathematics and science, but courage, ethics, and exploration. They watched engineers designing ships that could traverse unstable regions safely. Every system was built with thought, care, and preparation. Alan understood that the humans had not only survived, they had mastered themselves. One evening, as Alan and Maria stood on an observation deck overlooking the planets, Anna joined them. The sky was full of stars, many unseen from the inner galaxy. Anna spoke softly. "We knew that one day someone would follow the path we left. Humanity always leaves signs for those who care. You are those who care." Maria turned to her. "And what will happen now? Will you return to the outer worlds?" Anna smiled. "When the galaxy is ready, yes, but we will return on our terms. We will show them who we are, not as a conquered or lost people, but as humans who chose freedom and strength. Until then, we watch, learn, and grow." Alan felt a surge of hope. Humanity had not disappeared, and now they could return when they were ready. The galaxy had long thought humans weak or extinct, but now the truth would be revealed. Humans were not only alive, they were powerful, wise, and free. In the following weeks, Alan and Maria recorded everything. Every city, every technology, every map, and every story was carefully documented. They spoke with the people, understanding how humans balanced independence with cooperation. It was a delicate and perfect system, one that had allowed them to survive and thrive far from the watchful eyes of the Galactic Council. Finally, the day came when Alan and Maria were ready to leave and share the story. The humans gathered to see them off. Anna spoke to them with a smile. "Carry our story carefully. Tell them that humanity did not vanish. We chose our path and we have grown beyond the limits placed on us. Share the truth, but know that our people are not yet ready for everyone." Alan and Maria nodded. They boarded their ship heavy with information, maps, and recordings. As they left the human cluster, Alan looked back at the sparkling worlds. He felt awe and pride. Humanity had taken its destiny in its own hands, and now the galaxy would know the truth. Their journey back was full of reflection. Alan thought about all the risks humanity had taken, all the empty worlds and all the beacons and journals left behind. He realized that every step had been deliberate. Humanity had chosen to disappear, not to die. They had created a sanctuary where they could grow stronger, wiser, and more united. When they finally returned to the outer galaxy, the reports they carried shook the Council. They could not believe what Alan and Maria presented. Maps, journals, recordings, and evidence proved that humanity had not perished. The Council listened in awe as the story unfolded. Alan spoke clearly. Humans did not vanish. They chose to leave, to grow, to prepare. They are alive, thriving, and beyond anything the galaxy expected. The Council realized the truth for the first time. They had been wrong for centuries. Humanity had not been lost. They had chosen freedom, and now they were a force to be reckoned with. The galaxy had thought them gone, but they had returned in knowledge, power, and spirit. Alan and Maria returned to the human cluster one last time. The people welcomed them as messengers of the truth. Alan felt a deep sense of satisfaction. He had followed the trail, uncovered the mystery, and revealed the greatness of humanity. Maria smiled, knowing that they had done something that would be remembered for generations. The humans of the cluster continued to grow and thrive. They had proven that courage, intelligence, and freedom could survive even the greatest challenges. And the galaxy, now aware of the truth, could never underestimate humanity again. The disappearance had been solved. Humanity had chosen its path, and it had succeeded beyond imagination.